Hello, and welcome to OttaTalk, the City of Ottawa's podcast series where we talk with staff about city programs, projects, and initiatives. Today, we talk with the Addictions and Substance Use Health team at Ottawa Public Health about safe partying habits. So these are tips for you, our fellow partier, or for you to share with the partygoer in your life. So let's all learn how to party safer, Ottawa. Our theme song today is Can't Get Enough by the Lionels. We begin and end every podcast with a local artist featured on the City Sounds playlist featured on SoundCloud. You can find a link to our playlist in our show notes, and you will hear more at the end of our podcast. It's one more reason to stay until the end. So hello, my name is Shirley Mann, and I work in the Public Works Department. And I happen to love partying, so I'm really looking forward to talking to our guests today. With us today, we've got Megan Francoeur. Megan is a registered nurse on Ottawa Public Health's Addictions and Substance Use Health team. With a background in sexual health and harm reduction, she leads the Party Safer initiative and co-leads the Ottawa Post-Secondary Community of Practice. When she's not at a campus or community event, Megan is on stage as a local musician, which fuels her passion for working with youth, young adults, festival staff, and volunteers to create safer environments. Élisabeth Liz Bélanger Hardy is also a registered nurse on the Addictions and Substance Use Health team at Ottawa Public Health. She also has experience working in mental health. She works on different portfolios, including post-secondary initiatives, online education modules, gambling, and supports the Party Safer initiative. Outside of work, she enjoys doing sports, theater, acting, and volunteering. Wow, Megan and Liz, welcome to OttaTalk.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. So Megan and Liz, in addition to being registered nurses with OPH, you are both also a part of the local performing arts scene as a musician and as an actor. So how does your experience in music and theater play into your professional work?
I think for myself, it's really nice to have two passions joining. And my experience as a local musician has really helped to inform some of the work I do with the event teams, special events, and different bars, venues, a lot of the groups that we get to work with, including youth and young adults. So it's really nice to kind of know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Similarly to Megan, for me, theater, I developed so many different skills. And so it really helps me in the context of events with like youth and young people, like festivals, community events, workshops, and relating to them and being part of the conversation. And of course, theater helps with public speech. So that's a big plus.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. Well, we're happy to have you both. So this podcast is about Party Safer. Can you tell us what is the Party Safer initiative and what does it involve?
It's really for those moments, you mentioned partying, you like partying, festivals, events, maybe even nights out with friends. Doing that planning before, during, and after to make sure everybody is having a safer experience. So it's really focused on substance use. We also have resources on our partysafer.ca website for mental health, safer sex, violence prevention, and supports for bystander intervention too. A lot of free online trainings, printable resources. I could go on, but essentially this is a lot of the supports we have, and then we also do a lot of outreach in the community.
Yeah. So we know that alcohol and drug use are common in the party settings. So our goal is really to reduce the potential risk associated with those environments. And we really reinforce this idea of not to judge or shame people who use substances. We realize that people have different experience and choices when it comes to substance use. So one of our responsibilities is to put out there some information that is reliable and based on the best data so people can make the best decisions for themselves. The party initiative itself focuses on initiatives that prevent harms for the population. And we have a lot of trainings and workshops that are in person, but also online, and have a lot of like outreach components to them. So we're like directly with the population that we seek to inform and help. And also, of course, the Party Safer initiative is for everyone, not just people who use substance use. So it's for family, friends, community members, night event workers. So it's really something that's for this community at large.
Wow. I did not know about this beforehand, so it's great to know there's so many resources out there. You spoke a little bit about sort of your audience for the Party Safer initiative. Can you talk to us about some of those target groups? You both work with youth, for example. So why is it important for you to work with youth and young adults? And what's Ottawa Public Health doing to reach them?
Yeah, youth and young adults are definitely a key audience. We just passed prom season.
Yes.
Not just proms, but a lot of partying too. And in the summer, lots of different events going on. And we know that the brain continues to develop, into the mid-20s. So it's a really important time to get these messages about safer partying out because it's those parts of the brain that are developing are directly related to risk-taking, impulse control, and decision-making. And we also know that a lot of young people face a lot of social pressures when it comes to drugs, partying, and just fitting in with their group. So that's just a couple of examples of why it's so important for us to reach them. And I think also having open conversations. Some tips that we'd like to share with parents is, being open, non-judgmental. If you want to have a conversation, to maybe choose an area, a space that is quiet or calm and both people feel safe. And then just being supportive and listening. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So as you can imagine, we do a lot to get party safer messaging out there to youth and young adults. One of the things we do is that we work alongside school teams. So we provide a lot of information, a lot of educational tools that can be found on the platform. It's called School Health Online. And we are also regularly on campuses of universities and colleges to meet students where they are at. We also have like workshops and training sessions for staff, but also students. And through the year, like Megan said, we attend like many events like festivals, neighborhood activities, stuff like that for the young folks. And so we answer any questions they may have related to substance use. And we also do some outreach with our post-secondary groups through our community of practice. So we provide tools, information to support students' well-being and mental health as well.
Wow. You are working so hard to get these messages out. There's so many different avenues that you're using as well. What would you say is the biggest challenge or barrier your team has faced in getting these messages out?
I think one of the biggest barriers is stigma. Stigma continues to be a barrier for people who use substances. It can make it harder to want to reach out for help, whether that's from a healthcare provider or even just talking to your own friends and family about substance use. And people, it's common to think that maybe, this type of messaging might not apply to me because I don't use substances, or my kids don't do that. But we hear that type of thing a lot. But even if you don't yourself, I think it's really important to learn a little bit about the Party Safer initiative and some of these tips, do the trainings and that type of outreach that we're doing with the public too, because everybody in the community can support. Even if you're not using, you can play a big role in potentially saving someone else's life or supporting them when they need it.
What a great message.
Yeah, absolutely. Before jumping in, I just wanted to add something for the previous question. Social media is also a big channel through which we communicate and interact with youth, because that's where a lot of the conversation, the pressures, and a lot of messaging around substance use is present. So we want to be in that space to get our messaging out related to health promotion and prevention. But to answer your question about the challenges, so one of them is that reducing risk and harm is often associated with like substance use health, when in fact it's something that we do in our daily lives in so many other spheres. So we like to remind people of that because when we think of like road safety, for example, we put our seatbelts on, we put our helmet if we're biking or scootering, and we look both ways. So basically the Party Safer tips are the same thing, but just in the context of substance use. So we just like to remind folks of that. And our team has been working on a public health campaign called Have That Talk About Substance Use Health. It's a big campaign that we have. We have a lot of information on our webpage about that. You can also see the spectrum of substance use on that page. So we recognize that people use substances for so many different reasons, whether it be like beneficial, lower risk, or if they have they're medically diagnosed with a substance use disorder. What's really important is to remember that wellness is achievable wherever you are on that spectrum. So we want to be mindful of that and inclusive.
What a great metaphor, too, comparing this to road safety and all the things that we do to keep ourselves safe in other situations. So why not think about this in the same way?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of socials and websites, so there is a website, partysafer.ca, and that has a bunch of safer substance use tips. What do you think are, I don't know, like the top 2 or 3 tips that you think are the most important for people who are going out, partying, heading to festivals or camping or to the cottage?
I like the party safer tip that is start low, go slow, and drink water. The reason I like it so much is because it can be applied to any substance, no matter what somebody might be using. Starting slow is really a way to test your tolerance. Tolerance can be built up over time, and it's our body's ability to handle the effects of a substance. And it's really important to do that test or try a small amount first and go slow, especially if you're using something from an unregulated supply, or if it's your first time using it, or you haven't used it in a while. So taking small amounts, waiting, and seeing how something affects you is really helpful, because what affects me, it might affect you differently.
Yeah, that's right. What about you, Liz? What are your tips?
Yes, so I'd like to take the time to offer a tip for people who choose not to use substances or know someone who decides not to use substances. We really advocate for this idea that we have to respect everyone's choices when it comes to substance use and not making people feel guilty if they don't feel comfortable using, whatever the reason may be. So we know that saying no under pressure can be difficult. So we want to offer some strategies to say no. So for example, you can have an answer prepared to tell your friend, like, oh, this is why I don't want to use a substance tonight. Or you can use humor, or you can change the conversation. There are so many alternatives these days to alcohol. You can have like soft drinks, you can have 0% alcohol drinks. So just to be comfortable using what you feel comfortable with. And last thing is that in the context of saying no under pressure, we think it's important to talk about consent, especially in the party settings. Sexual activities can occur. So we think it's a great time to talk about this idea that consent is something that's you're willing to do with enthusiasm. And so it's important to ask before having sexual relations with someone. And this idea that your consent can be removed at any time. It's really important. And we want to get that messaging out. And we encourage those who want to learn more about informed consent to consult the Government of Canada's webpage, because they have a lot of information on that.
Yeah, what a great tie-in to make sure that consent is also a part of this conversation. Okay, so we're talking about overall reducing risk related to substance use. And I've heard people use this term on the nod. What does that mean? Help us in the audience understand what that means and what the signs of that might be.
Yeah, on the nod refers to intoxication. And it's really important to know that signs of intoxication can look a lot different than signs of an overdose. And someone who's intoxicated can it can turn into an overdose very quickly. So important to, always be aware of that, be monitoring that. Signs of intoxication might be that the person's muscles are relaxed, their head is on the nod, so nodding forward. They might be very sleepy, their speech might be a little slurred or slow. But it's important to know that they're likely going to wake up if you try to get a response. So if you try to shake it, shout, hey, 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 wake up, can you hear me? They'll respond and usually can also walk around, whereas in an overdose situation, the person's likely not going to be able to respond to that shake and shout. Liz, do you want to talk a little bit about the signs of overdose for opioids?
Yeah, absolutely. So this overdose can be very different depending on the substance that was used. If it's a stimulant like cocaine or MDMA, it'll be very different than if it's a depressor like alcohol or an opioid. So we'll go a little bit more in detail on the signs and symptoms. So the first ones are related to breathing. So the breathing will be very slow, irregular, or there'll be no breathing at all. You can also hear like gurgling sounds, like snoring sounds. The body will become limp. The person is not responsive to shake and shouting. The skin would be cold and clammy, and the pupils would be very, very small. So we recognize that some of these signs and symptoms can be difficult to identify. Like, for example, the change in the color of the nails or the lips that can be blue or gray. If the person is wearing nail polish, you might not see it, or if they're wearing fake nails. And if their eyes are closed or rolled at the back of their head, obviously you can't see the pupil. So in those circumstances, you'll look for the other symptoms that we talked about. We like to remind people that when you're carrying naloxone, you can follow the 5 instruction steps to respond to an opioid overdose. These instructions are both in French and in English, and on our website, we have them in multiple other languages as well. And obviously an important step is to always call 911 because an overdose is a medical emergency. And we'll talk a little bit about that, why it's important to call 911. Yeah.
Just to add to that, I think even if you're not sure, you're like, oh, this might be intoxication. When in doubt, just call 911 for that support. You're never in the wrong for doing that. It's a great first step.
That's an excellent tip. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for these descriptors as well. So I see that the two of you have brought naloxone kits. So let's talk about that a little bit. Can you show us what they look like and show us what's inside and how they work?
Yeah, so I'm holding a nasal spray naloxone kit, and Liz has the injection for a muscle over there. Inside each kit, for this one, there are 2 nasal sprays. Really easy to use, and what's really nice is in Ontario, they're free in a lot of places like pharmacies, community centers, and you can find where to get them at stopoverdoseottawa.ca. Liz mentioned that they come with 5-step instruction sheets, so right in there, if you forget what to do, you've got the French and English here. You've also got gloves and a mask for CPR or breathing, rescue breathing. And then also important to know that there's an expiration date, so keep an eye on that. And then when it comes to storing an naloxone kit, we recommend trying not to leave it in your car glove compartment where it can freeze or get really hot. It's better to keep it accessible, so maybe in a purse or a bag with you. And then when you go home, to bring it back inside to room temperature. Naloxone is a medication that can temporarily reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. So it's not a cure, but it does work pretty fast and hopefully help someone to breathe within 2 to 5 minutes. But it can only last up to 2 hours. So that's why it's so important to get that support from the first aid, like paramedics, or if you're at a festival or an event, there's often paramedics on site or first aid on site. And then if you're out in the community, to call 911.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Liz, can you show us what's in your naloxone kit?
So mine is a little bit different because it's an intramuscular injection. So you'll have like a pretty big needle here that you put in the muscle, either the arm or the thigh. And the medication itself is in an ampoule like this, and it's glass. So you got to be careful when you open this, just not to cut yourself. And the rest is pretty much the same. I have a barrier mask for rescue breathing, and I also have gloves in case sometimes there's puke. And so it's important to put the person in a recovery position so that they don't choke on it. And if you feel comfortable, you can put on a glove and remove it from their mouths. And the rest of the kit is pretty much the same. Yeah.
It's great that they come with instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah, even that recovery position, there's a little picture of it on the 5-step pamphlet, so it's really nice.
Can you tell us a little bit about how someone can know when is the right time to use a naloxone kit?
Yeah, so Liz mentioned some of the signs of opioid overdose. And I mean, there's no harm in using naloxone. So if Liz, if I sprayed it in my nose right now, I don't have an opioid in my system, so nothing's really going to happen. If there was an opioid in my system, it would go onto those opioid receptors and block it, and hopefully help to reverse those signs of overdose that Liz went over. But like we mentioned, you're not in the wrong. If you're in doubt, call 911. Carry naloxone. And if you're really unsure and not feeling comfortable using it, they will help guide you on the phone too.
Oh, that's a great thing to know. Excellent. So we've learned a lot right now about how to respond to an overdose. Can you talk to us a little bit about what we can do to reduce other alcohol and drug-related risks?
Yeah, we've talked about tolerance. We talked about going slow and drinking water. I think another great tip is around mixing substances. It's really important to try to avoid doing that because mixing substances can amplify their effects, and the effects of a substance on me might be different than you. Some substances take longer to take effect than others. And especially if you're getting drugs from the unregulated supply, it's really unpredictable. So you want to be careful not to mix even unregulated. So you want to be careful not to mix unregulated substances, even with like prescription medications too. And then when it comes to alcohol, I think it's really important to mix having non-alcoholic drinks in between alcoholic drinks. So staying hydrated. There's Canada's guidance on alcohol and health, which shows that 1 to 2 standard drinks per week is lower risk, and no drinks per week is no risk. And some other party safer tips related to alcohol include trying to stick to the limits you set for yourself, drink slowly and eat something before and while you're drinking or partying, and then incorporating those non-alcoholic drinks.
For sure. Yes. And if you feel comfortable, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Just like that for our audience. Do you have an idea of where most overdoses happen?
Oh, that is a great question.
Like which setting do you think most of the...
If I had to guess, I'm going to assume it doesn't happen in like a public like bar or festival setting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if it happens in the home.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, super knowledgeable host. So the data shows that most overdoses happen in private residences, so in people's homes. Although obviously overdose can happen anywhere. In any setting. So that's why it's really important, and we do so much work to tackle stigma, because people sometimes feel ashamed and they use alone without any supervision, and no one knows that they're using. So there could be an emergency and no one's there to contact them or help them. So in that perspective, we really encourage people to use a service that's called NORS. It's the National Overdose Response Service. So this is a service that's available to all Canadians across the country. It is free. It has virtual services. You can call them or text them. We're going to put the phone number below the video for those who are interested. It's 100% confidential, without judgment. And so it's basically a safer consumption service that's virtual, like I said. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. You're sharing so many great tips that I feel like are good to keep in mind year round. We're actually recording this podcast and releasing it in the summer during festival season. So I'm curious if either of you or both of you have any sort of festival season specific tips for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting events happening in the summer, and we also know that substance use related risks might be a little bit different because of things like heat. So the heat can definitely intensify effects of alcohol and drugs. And then we did mention stimulants earlier. Substances like MDMA and cocaine can increase the risk of overheating and dehydration as well. So it's important to drink water and to take breaks from those activities like dancing at festivals. And then plus we know that it can be hard to find shade in some of these events. And so checking before, maybe the website or social media accounts of the festival or event to see, do they have water stations? Can I bring a refillable water bottle? Always wearing sunscreen, bringing a hat, and then, of course, watching for those signs of heat exhaustion, so nausea, fatigue, and dizziness too.
Thank you both so much for joining us today and for having this super important conversation. For our listeners, please share this podcast far and wide with anyone you know. Like I think Megan mentioned earlier, it takes all types of people offering all types of support to make sure that we all can party safer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to our listeners, any city programs or services we talk about will be listed in our program notes wherever you're streaming this podcast from, or you can search for them on the city website, which is ottawa.ca. The program notes also have a link to the city's YouTube channel where you can find our entire podcast archive. And if you have a comment or question about this podcast or any of our podcasts, just send us a message at podcast-balado@ottawa.ca. So this is the end of the podcast, but I don't think it's the end of this conversation. No. So remember to visit ottawa.ca for more information about the programs. Yes. Learn more about Party Safer that you heard about here today. Be on the lookout for upcoming announcements about more City of Ottawa podcasts, because that's when we ought to talk about something else completely different. And because I can't get enough, to play us out, here is a little more of Can't Get Enough by the Lionels from the City Sounds playlist on SoundCloud.
Soon as you find the groove you'll know, won't have to question anymore. First we lock the bass and drums, then suddenly you can't get enough.